Good, happy Wednesday morning, March 6th, 2019. I'm Riley King, and welcome to the Riley King Newscast, right here on the Riley King Network. Let's begin. First up, phone service down in 9 southern New Hampshire towns after consolidated communications equipment fire. Let's take a listen to this video from WMUR News 9.
Pushed out the door when it matters most. For more than a decade, he's been right there, everywhere. And when American jobs are on the line, he leads the charge. ABC's World News Tonight with David Muir is America's most watched newscast, and we thank you.
And we go right to breaking news tonight. People in a number of southern New Hampshire towns cannot call 911 at this hour after an equipment fire involving Consolidated Communications. The State Department of Safety says the following towns are impacted: Mount Vernon, Amherst, New Boston, Milford, Greenfield, Lineborough, Dunbarton, Ware, and Goffstown. People in those towns are currently unable to make calls outside their local area. Anyone with an emergency should call their local police or fire departments directly, or call 911 with your cell phone. No word on when that service might be restored. We'll keep you posted.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. President Trump signs order aimed at stopping suicide by veterans. Let's take a listen to that video from WMUR News 9, Gene Mackin.
President Trump signed an executive order creating a new task force aimed at preventing veteran suicide.
Hard to believe. An average of 20 veterans and service members take their lives every single day. Who would believe that's possible?
New Hampshire is already tackling the problem, the only state in the Northeast taking part in what's called the Governor's Challenge, with federal support finding the most effective ways to prevent suicide among veterans, service members, and their families. The most recent research shows in 2016, 33 out of New Hampshire's 105,000 veterans turned to suicide, on par with the national average.
But that's just not good enough. So in New Hampshire, we want it to be 0.
50 military and civilian leaders are pinpointing effective strategies, from having doctors ask patients if they served, to hotlines and mental health centers staffed with a military liaison. The teams from the 7 states already met in Washington, D.C. to share ideas.
We're bringing them back to New Hampshire, and we're going to start implementing them across the state.
And what works here could be used on a national scale by the president's task force. And we're told other states are already calling here to New Hampshire, asking for advice to create their own programs. Live in Manchester tonight, Gene Mackin, WMUR News 9.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. Woman sues Vermont treatment facility over alleged kidnapping, sexual assault. Let's take a listen to that video from WMUR News 9, Kristen Carosa.
A month and a half after 23-year-old Celia Rossler says she and her son were kidnapped from the parking lot of the Mall of New Hampshire, she's going public with her story and is filing a lawsuit.
She's chosen, and very bravely so, and I'm proud to be associated with her, to bring this story to the public and to take charge of her own story.
Rossler says she was buckling up her 4-year-old son when Everett Simpson allegedly pushed her into the passenger seat of her car. He then got into the driver's seat and drove them to Vermont, where authorities say he sexually assaulted her in a motel in front of her son. He was eventually caught in Pennsylvania.
This is a lawsuit about a terrible tragedy and responsibility and taking responsibility for that tragedy.
Before the incident happened, Simpson was being held at a facility in Vermont that treats people for addiction and mental health issues. The lawsuit claims Simpson has a violent background and staff did not notify authorities quickly enough.
He escaped from the facility without them telling anybody and had the opportunity to come down to New Hampshire and attack and assault and kidnap our client.
The suit also says the state of Vermont was negligent by failing to immediately issue a warrant for Simpson's arrest once they learned he had escaped.
The police, and they've admitted this in Vermont, failed to follow up properly and let a whole day go by while he was doing the things he was doing to our client Celia.
Now, we did reach out to that treatment facility, but we never heard back. We also reached out to the Attorney General's office in Vermont, but they're closed for today. Reporting live in Manchester, Kristen Carosa, WMUR News.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. Rochester man accused of sexually assaulting child over several years. Let's take a listen to this video from WMUR News 9, Tom Griffith.
This morning, police and the United States Marshals Service executed search warrants arresting the 36-year-old suspect at his home in Rochester.
The investigation has shown that the alleged suspect, Mr. Kara Rai, had inserted himself into the victim's family when the victim's family came to the United States in the mid-2000s.
Concord police were informed by an acquaintance of the victim and began their investigation in May of last year.
He groomed the victim, and over time, while the victim was a child at the grade school level, began sexually assaulting the victim through the use of force, threats of force, and coercion.
Investigators joined the case from multiple jurisdictions, including Concord, Barrington, and Boscawen. Detectives conducted interviews and collected evidence that corroborated the allegations. Now, Ray faces significant charges that could land him behind bars for a very long time.
This lasted right up through 2017. Very tragic case that's happened to this victim, and we've brought charges for today to hopefully bring some justice for the victim.
He will appear in Concord District Court in the morning. And investigators are concerned that there may be other victims out there. If anyone has more information regarding this case, you're asked to contact either Concord or Barrington police.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. Former Boys and Girls Club worker sentenced for sex assault. A former Boys and Girls Club worker in New Hampshire has been sentenced to at least 8 years in prison for a pattern of sexual abuse involving a teenage girl who attended the program. The Concord Monitor reports 29-year-old Joshua Adams of New Hampton pleaded guilty to aggravated felonious sexual assault. Court documents say he assaulted the girl between January and August 2017. The teen said she met Adams at the Boys and Girls Club in Concord while attending program there, starting in 2016. Adams is required to register as a sex offender and complete the sex offender treatment program at prison. He apologized for his actions Monday in court. As part of a plea agreement, prosecutors dismissed more than a dozen other charges pending against Adams. Utility group denies water pollution. A utility is denying allegations by two environmental groups that it involved the Clean Water Act in operating a coal-fired power plant in New Hampshire. Eversource responded Monday to the federal lawsuit by the Sierra Club and the Conservation Law Foundation over the Merrimack Station power plant in Bow. Eversource owned the plant until last year, selling it to Connecticut-based Granite Shore Power. Both are named as defendants. An Eversource spokesman said before the sale, the utility worked closely with the EPA to meet all environmental permitting requirements, including those cited in the lawsuit. He said Eversource denies the allegations. The environmental group alleged the utilities polluted the Merrimack River with heated wastewater from the plant. Granite Shore Power didn't immediately respond to the message seeking comment. Dow futures point to a lower open as investors monitor U.S.-China trade developments. U.S. stock index futures were lower Wednesday morning as market players remain focused on U.S.-China trade developments. Trump Organization insurance policies under investigation, sources say. Let's take a listen to this video from ABC News.
The deal with North Korea is proving elusive.
It's a process and it's moving along, but we just felt it wasn't appropriate to sign an agreement today.
In Hanoi this morning, President Trump and North Korea's Kim Jong-un abruptly cut short their second summit after failing to reach a nuclear agreement.
We have to have sanctions, and he wants to denuke, but he wants to just do areas that are less important than the areas that we want.
The respective sides say they will meet again in the future. The president's diplomatic effort took place against the backdrop of a dramatic day in Washington.
I know what Mr. Trump is. He is a racist, he is a con man, and he is a cheat.
The keeper of Donald Trump's secrets, his personal lawyer for a decade, Michael Cohen, now dumping on his old boss.
While this was going on, the drama back in Washington, your former lawyer, what's your response to Michael Cohen?
Most important question up there was the one on collusion, and he said he saw no collusion. So we'll see what happens, but it was pretty shameful, I think.
Michael Cohen called Trump a racist.
And he told me that black people would never vote for him because they were too stupid.
Called him a con man.
The campaign for him was always a marketing opportunity.
And called Trump a bully.
How many times did Mr. Trump ask you to threaten an individual or entity on his behalf?
Quite a few times.
50 times?
More.
100 times?
More.
200 times?
More.
500 times?
Probably.
Bombshell after bombshell from a man who certainly can claim to have been in the room where it happened, but who's also a known liar. In fact, Cohen's about to go to jail for, among other crimes, lying to Congress.
You said all these bad things about the president there in that last 30 minutes, but you worked for him for 10 years. Mr. Cohen, how long did you work in the White House?
I never worked in the White House.
That's the point, isn't it, Mr. Cohen?
No, sir.
Yes, it is.
No, it's not, sir.
You wanted to work in the White House.
No, sir.
You didn't get brought to the dance.
I actually think it was a sad day for America. When at any time that you have the president dragged through the mud that way, it hurts our democracy.
How worried should the president be?
Michael Cohen was so specific in what he offered to Congress today. There's a lot there that, if the dots are connected, could create a very strong case, certainly for a criminal investigation, if not impeachment.
Today's hearing was almost a split-screen moment. The president off being a statesman, while his former lawyer brought up a wide variety of issues. The hearing offered some tantalizing tidbits on the Russia investigation.
Questions have been raised about whether I know of direct evidence that Mr. Trump or his campaign colluded with Russia. I do not, and I want to be clear, but I have my suspicions.
Cohen claimed to have been in the room when Don Trump Jr. informed him.
Okay, and there you go on that report in that video. If you want to watch the full video and report, we will have a link for you on the Riley King Network Facebook page. And that does it for the Riley King Newscast right here on the Riley King Network. I hope you all have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you back here later on today for another newscast. And I'll have a news report coming up in a little bit. Goodbye, everyone.